evening. I'm Larry Souter, and welcome to Stories of Amazing Grace. We're coming to you from Bixter Chapel at the Madison Church of Christ in Madison, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us online and being a part of our live audience, and we invite you to be a part of the live audience here at the Madison Church of Christ, 6:30, first Wednesday of the month, right here in Madison, Tennessee. So come see us when you can. Our theme scripture comes from Romans 8:38 through 39. I am sure that nothing can separate us from God's love, not life or death, not angels or spirits, not the present or the future, not powers above or powers below. Nothing in all creation can separate us from God's love for us in Christ Jesus our Lord. Short-term mission trips, long-term impact, a lifetime of stories. That's what Mission Discovery is all about. My guests tonight are Mission Discovery's founder, Maury Buchanan, and its president, Nathan Walters. Mission Discovery sends out teams of volunteers around the world to build homes for families in need, love on orphans, feed the hungry, clothe and educate school children, provide medical care, and empower churches to bring hope to their communities. And that sounds like something Jesus would want us to do. And you'll meet Maury and Nathan right after this.
Each year, for one of over 50 weeks of Mission Discovery trips, explorers from all over the U.S. set out to discover the work of God. They go as volunteers, expecting God to do big things, but what they discover might be more amazing than they had ever imagined. Leaving the comfort of their home, they step through the door of endless opportunity to discover what God is doing in the world. But the question remains, is there still more to discover for those who have yet to explore?
Well, hey, my name's Nathan Walters, and I started going on Mission Discovery trips back in 2009. Jimmy Rivera invited me to go to Tecate, Mexico, and lead worship for 1 week down there, and I just was so excited about it that I paid money to stay for a second week. I just loved it so much. It wrecked me, you know. Just being able to experience God in a new way like that opened my eyes to so much poverty that I wasn't used to seeing in my everyday life. And from that point forward, I just knew that Mission Discovery was what I was supposed to be doing. Those 2 weeks brought meaning to my life.
If the goal was to build homes for the homeless, then we would have sent in a group of experienced, well-trained professionals to do the job. But the goal isn't to build homes. It's to build relationships, to meet a physical need and a spiritual need. And even though we speak different languages, I've seen God communicate to the people of Tecate that our heart was to serve and share the love of God. And that's exactly what we as Christians are called to do.
In 1991, I was 40 years old with a vision to organize mission trips for youth groups. There was one hurdle, though. It would mean leaving my job, giving up a salary and benefits, and raising the support to make this happen. Actually, there was one other hurdle, and that was that I was afraid. So my wife suggested that I reach out to our pastor and talk to him about it. He asked me a question that changed the course of my life. Today's program, I'll talk about what that question was and the answer that I gave in hopes that it will give you the courage to step out into the vision that God is calling you to.
Welcome, Maury Buchanan and Nathan Walters. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Larry.
Glad to have you. Have a seat. Well, let's start off with that question. What did the pastor ask you, Maury?
I can't remember.
Oh.
No, it was a great setup. Thanks for having us.
Sure.
It was a powerful question, and really my wife made the appointment with my pastor, which I thought was a foul ball. Because when you need counseling, you're supposed to make your own appointment, right? Because you get more out of it. But I went because I just thought it was the right thing to do. And I had considered I was working for an agency, was struggling financially, and I decided to move back to Nashville to go back into the field that I had been in before I ever started in youth work. And I was a youth pastor, and I was going to go back to being a top 40 disc jockey at WLAC FM. I was there under a different name years before as Chris Tyler, and that
What was the
my
name? What was the name?
Chris Tyler. You've not heard of me.
106 FM, this is Chris Tyler, 416. You know, we offer the most accurate and most up-to-date forecast anywhere. It's our exclusive AccuWeather forecast coming up about 4 minutes away.
So everybody I worked, Phil Valentine was the morning man, Brian Sargent was middays, and I was afternoons. And my wife said, listen, you've seen this agency run the way it's run. Why don't you start one and run one differently? And I said in that introductory piece that one of the reasons was I was afraid. Looking good was important to me, and failure, I just didn't want that. And so she said, go talk to Richard. I went and talked to him, and he said, Ann's told me what you're considering. What's the problem? And I told him, and he said, Maury, here's the question he asked. Will God call you to do a Maury-sized thing or a God-sized thing? I said, Richard, I'm not going to answer the question. And he said, why? I said, because then I will be responsible for actions based on the answer. And he says, you know the answer. I do. I went home and Ann said, what did he say? And I told her what he had said. And he said, what was your answer? And I said, well, I said I wasn't going to answer it. And she said, what is your answer? And I said, God will always call us to do God-sized things so that he gets the credit for what happens. And Mission Discovery and its founding was beyond really what I thought was my ability. And my background was, I was a youth pastor at a church in Hendersonville for 4 years. I had been on Youth for Christ staff for 10, and I was a top 40 disc jockey. And what good could I be? And yet God called me. And so when I left this agency, they said to me, listen, because of your role here, we don't want you to have any contact with the churches that you've had contact with. And in fact, it was a no-compete agreement. And I said, I'm happy to do that because I want this to fail quickly. This is surely. So I agreed to that. Well, Mission Discovery grew to taking 3,500 students on mission trips to 8 countries while I was on staff at Mission Discovery. And I couldn't believe what God did through me at first, unwilling, fearful, not believing that I had what it took. And I just looked for incredible people to hire like Nathan and Jimmy Rivera, who Nathan mentioned in his intro video, who were more skilled and educated than me. But that question was powerful for me in my life.
And Nathan, how did you become involved with Mission Discovery? Now, you went on a mission trip and paid to go an extra week. Is that correct?
Did. Yeah, I did. Back in 2009, I met him randomly on a Nashville mission trip. So I knew who he was, and it was just kind of this random thing. But a couple weeks later, one of my roommates, guys that he went to church with or something, I couldn't even put it together, needed a worship leader in Tecate, Mexico. And so my roommate was going to do it, but he said, I really want Nathan, me, to go with him to Tecate. And this other guy, his name was Jimmy Rivera, who Maury just mentioned. He said, this is not my, generally what I do. I don't take 2 worship leaders. There's no need for it. But for some reason, he said yes that time. So that's extra money to bring me out there, all that stuff. And that's true. Yeah, I fell in love with it. That first week was, we built 8 homes for people in need in this community that was just desperate. And it was like a light bulb came on. I had been involved with youth ministry, and that's what this was. I'd been involved in construction, and that's what this was. And I'd led worship, and that's what this was. So it was a culmination of all these different things that I had done that kind of were pieces in my story that all came together this one week. And I just said, I have to know more about this organization. I paid to stay the following week, and then came back to Nashville, and I was like, okay, well, let me call up this organization that I'd never heard of. And I said, whoever answered the phone, I said, hey, can I meet with somebody? Because I really want to talk to them about coming to work with Mission Discovery. Said, yeah, I'll arrange it. So next thing I know, it's August in Nashville. Anybody know anything about August in Nashville? I didn't have a car, but I had a bicycle. And so she said, all right, they're going to meet you at Starbucks in West End. Go there. And so I was like, okay, that's about hot and far, it felt like. And it was a Walmart bike, didn't help. So anyway, I showed up, and I'm drenched in sweat. It's hot outside, and show up, I'm like, this is great. And I look, and it's Maury Buchanan, who was the president, and I had no clue. When I had met him before, I had no clue he was the president. And it was Jimmy Rivera, who was, at the time, the CFO, like the second head honcho, who had been in Mexico with me. So I'm like immediately, oh, wow, these are my guys. I'm in. And so I said, I really want to come work with Mission Discovery. And they said, wait. They said, pray about it. I didn't know that meant wait 5 years. It was 5 years before I got hired at Mission Discovery from that point. But as you like to say, we are slow.
We're small, but we're slow.
And your wives are involved with this as well, or at least supportive of your endeavors. We have a picture of you with your wives, I think, here.
That's Maury and Ann, and they're both wonderful. And then that's me, Molly, and Malachi. And we were going to say, Molly was going to come, but Malachi is a handful right now. He's almost 2 years old, and he's wild. So.
And what's happening here? Where is this trip?
This is in a safari vehicle in Kruger Park in South Africa. This is every Mission Discovery trip has a day off activity. This one's pretty marvelous, a safari. So we're out there looking for the big five. And this is part of there were three of these safari vehicles. This is one of them, part of the team. And you see Jimmy Rivera back in the back looking over my shoulder, and his wife on his right side there on the left. That's Kyla Rivera.
Is it dangerous being in Africa? You said Africa, right?
The only danger is that I'm the leader, but
no wild animals are attacking the vehicle.
Well, this is a pretty controlled environment. You're in a safari vehicle, so it's not. But these are wild animals who want to eat you. The first time we went to check this out, every trip we go on, we want to know where the nearest hospital is and where all the things are that keep us safe. So we went on a pre-trip with another staff member, myself and another staff member, and we went on safari in a little red rental car. Red, it's very attractive to animals. And so we decided that we could get out of the car and take pictures. And as we were exiting the park after 5 hours in the park, I said, hey, my sunglasses are in the trunk. I got out of the car to go to the trunk, and then this car pulled alongside of us, lowered his window about this much, and says, what are you doing outside the car? There's a $500 fine for getting outside of your car. And I said, why is that? And they said, because there are lions out here who will eat you. And I said, we didn't see any lions. And they said, they saw you. All right, so yes, long answer. That was a Rubel Shelley answer, I believe.
You saw that.
I did, yes. But it was, it can be dangerous, but not in this environment. You have a guide, and he has a rifle in the vehicle with him. So.
Why do we need mission discovery? Can churches do what you're doing?
Absolutely, and the churches. Madison Church of Christ is a very large church where this program is hosted, and for the most part, churches like Madison Church of Christ have the resources to pull together short-term mission trips. They can do them well. Smaller churches don't tend to have those kinds of resources, so those are really our target audience, though we have some large churches who go with us. The logistical pieces for a small church are difficult. That's transportation on the ground, safety, which I mentioned, lodging, food, a meaningful connection with an agency who has invited us to be a part of their work. We're always going to go where there's an invitation. So yes, can a church do it on their own? Oftentimes, churches will come with us and in fact, discover that they can do it on their own.
Okay, walk me through the procedure. I want to go on a mission trip
Yep.
to Paris.
Oh, me too.
Well, I think first of all,
Or
I'd have to
wherever.
go check that out first.
Or Africa.
Africa. Maybe.
Okay. What do I do? Do I come in and fill out an application? Does it
well,
cost me money?
Yeah. So a lot of people find us online. That's so we've got a list of trips online and list of dates, and they will find us and they'll reach out. They'll click a button. They'll say, "Hey, I want to go on a trip," and we'll call them back. We'll get all their information, applications, things like that. There's a whole process. We hold your hand the whole way through. You know, we try to make it as easy as possible to mobilize your team to go on a trip. That's really our goal. We want to give. See, what happens is a lot of times youth pastors, youth leaders, if anybody in here has been a youth pastor, youth leader, or any type of leader, you know that a lot of times your time is just wrapped up in that ministry. And so then you've got all this other programming. You've got camp, and you've got this weekend and that weekend. Your time fills up. And if you're a youth pastor, a lot of times you got a new family. Maybe you've got kids. And so we're trying to give time back to the youth pastors and their families and things like that. Take all the heavy lifting off of the actual planning of a mission trip, which there's a lot of heavy lifting, and then give them that time back. So yeah, we try to make it easy for them.
And the cost is?
Cost is?
Depends on
depending
where you go.
Yeah, depending on where you go, you know, anywhere from, if you're going stateside, I think it's around $400, or going to Africa, goodness, that's what?
$1,700 on the ground, plus you've got your airfare to get to Johannesburg.
$1,700 plus the airfare.
Plus air, yep.
Do you turn anybody down?
Well, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because they don't have money, or because they're...
Yes, that's a good written. No, you know, we've got a set of values on the website that people can kind of look at and say, okay, I align with this, or I don't align with this. Sometimes there are groups that call and they're like, hey, we're this. Would you guys have issues with us going? And sometimes the answer is yes, we would, because we don't believe their values align with our values. So that's the biggest reason that we would turn somebody down, is there's a value imbalance. Would that be, you know, just mismatched? Yeah.
You have a great website,
No.
missiondiscovery.org. A lot of pictures, a lot of videos, a lot of information. I was very impressed with the website. On the website was 8 things not to bring on a mission trip. I wonder if you could elaborate on these. Number 1 is savior complex.
You know, as U.S. citizens, we believe that we have the best ideas. We have great ideas here in the U.S. We encourage every participant on a mission discovery trip to come as a learner, as a servant, and then as a storyteller. It's why we like Stories of Amazing Grace so much, the title, because it's about the stories of people, their experience with Christ. I have a story of what Jesus did for me, how he changed my life. You could argue with that, but it's not. I mean, it's my story. So every student comes prepared to be a learner first, to not have a savior complex, to learn from the culture, to believe that what is said to them and experienced is the voice of God from another culture. To learner, servant, they're coming to serve as Christ served, and then to be ready to tell their story. And we prepare every team with a pre-field orientation and encourage them with tools that help them share their story in 5 minutes. 5 minutes is significant because in another nation, that 5 minutes with a translator becomes 10 minutes. So I should be able to point to any student, any adult participant, and say, I want you to come over and tell your story. Just to elaborate on that, we had a trip to Westmoreland, Tennessee. Our trips are not just international, they're here in the U.S. and internationally as well. We had a ramp building project up in Westmoreland, Tennessee. A group of students was there. There was a lady across the street. She had a child on the porch, and she was trying to mow the yard and manage her child at the same time. One of our leaders, Carl Pregel, saw what was going over there. While she went up to the porch to manage her child, he went over and grabbed her lawnmower. She came back over. She said, no. I can mow my yard. And Carl said, no, listen, let me mow your yard. We have a every one of these students is prepared to tell a story of what Jesus has done in their life. And they need practice. Would you mind if one of them came over and practiced on you? And she said, no, that would be okay. Carl continued to mow this lady's yard. And the student came over and in 5 minutes unfolded her story, and the lady gave her life to Christ. It was just a powerful example of just being ready with your story and being willing to share it. An inflexible attitude, that's you, Nathan.
That'll be okay. Yeah, thanks.
So I took 5 years to hire you.
An inflexible attitude. An inflexible attitude. Yeah, so we ask all of our people to be flexible. As with anything we do in life.
Number three.
Comfort zone expectations. We ask people to lay aside their expectations as they come on a mission trip, because it's almost an impossible ask, because these, for the most part, are people, adults and students who have never experienced life in another culture or even life with the poor here in our own communities. And so they may come with expectations. If you can lay those aside and ask God to make himself visible to you in the moment, that's what we're asking for. So that is laying aside expectations. Everybody, number 4, a fear that you're not worthy. We believe that you are God's creation. That's what he said. You're made in his image. And so therefore, you are worthy. The scripture says that you will be light. It says you are light to the world. And so everyone has value on a mission discovery trip. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Too much luggage?
Too much luggage. Kind of names itself there.
Is that emotional luggage? Or,
is that figurative? Or is that,
I think that's regular luggage.
Yeah, luggage. Too much luggage. Although I think an argument can be made that I've seen a lot of people come on trips and just leave everything.
Yeah,
they'll walk back. They'll go back in their flip-flops, shorts, and T-shirt, and I'm getting head nods out there like somebody's done that before.
Do you allow them to take iPods and iPods?
Fighting
iPhones.
Yeah, fighting against phones, and that is something that we don't have to do because our group leaders do that. They'll a lot of teams do come and say, hey, no phones for the week. Mm-hmm. And I will say those are the teams that tend to get the most out of the week, for sure. Yeah, just setting aside technology. So, preconceived notions. There's expectations there, Marty.
I knew you would turn that over to me. I had a man come up to me. We were in another culture. And he said, these people aren't as dumb as you think they are. And I thought, I said, how dumb did you think they were? It's just that kind of attitude. It's like, no, there's... These, again, you're working with people created in the image of God. These are image bearers of God. Mm-hmm. And so leave those preconceived notions behind, what you've read in the media about them, or what you've heard said. Leave that back, and just listen and enjoy. Yep.
Yeah, a closed heart. On mission trips, when people come, they'll come on Sunday, generally Sunday or Monday. Then they'll leave back home on Saturday. Our prayer every mission trip is that the person that comes on Sunday is not the same person that leaves on Saturday. That something during the week happens and the light bulb comes on. And you asked me about Takati earlier, my first mission trip. It was about halfway through that trip that I thought I'd come because Takati needed me. I realized that I needed Takati. It was just something that changes when we go on these trips. More perspective, we come alive, light bulbs come on. You say that the thing you missed most is?
Wednesday.
Yeah.
So people ask me, which trip is it you missed the most, or which one do you like the most? And it's like, it's not a trip, it's a day. Monday, every group comes and they don't really know how it's going to go, and they get through that day, and then Tuesday they have the experience of the previous day, so it's a better day for them. They get to know names of people that they're serving, and they know their routine, and then Wednesday they're more relaxed. And every night at a mission discovery trip, we ask for God sightings. Like, how did you see it? It's a logo on the screen. It's time for God sightings. Night 1, there are just a few. Night 2, a trickle of more God sightings. And then Wednesday, you cannot stop people from talking about how they saw God at work. And so we see hearts open over the course of the week. Revelation 3:20 says, behold, these are red letters too, by the way. It says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. Mm-hmm. If anyone hears my voice, I will come in, right? It's Jesus' words, and it was actually written to the church. Revelation was written to the church, so it's to us. Jesus is saying, open your heart. I'm knocking. I'm always knocking. There's new doors to open. So a closed heart is we're not requesting that. So
I assume the last day is a sad day when they're leaving.
Ooh.
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah. And last days, Thursday is the last work day on most one-week trips. Friday is a day off. We get some pushback on the day off too, don't we, Nathan? They say, why can't we go back? Why do we have to have a day off? And it's really for you to digest what has happened in the previous 4 days. Something happens during that quiet of a day off that it provides for an evening that is full of God sightings and incredible testimonies of what God's done in open hearts.
Yep.
Personal agendas.
I don't know that I'm allowed to speak to it's personal agendas. It's like, we don't want to go on mission trips with our own, agendas, with our own ideas of what we want to happen. I don't know that I can. I met my wife on a mission trip.
You were fishing from the company pier.
Yeah, I
there.
wasn't supposed to do that. Yeah.
No.
So I don't know that I can speak to this that much. I'm not allowed to
I think
anymore.
you violated
Though
that.
I probably
She was part of the group that went on the trip?
She was. No, she was an intern, so I wasn't that bad.
It was terrible.
No, she was an intern. Jimmy sent me in to get the intern from the luggage, turnstile thing, and I went in. And I said, "Uh-oh, this is bad." And so she was there for 2 weeks in Mexico. And so the first week we kind of talked or whatever, and the second week was like, well, this is some chemistry here. And we had a break, and I was like, okay, good, we're done. And then she was in Jamaica a week later with me, and I was like, oh boy. Yeah, a few years later, he's doing our wedding. You approved, so
I did the wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, personal agendas. We just want to stay clear of what we're expecting on our own terms, and let God show us what He wants to reveal to us. Which to me, back in 2016, was a wife. So there you go.
I got an 18-second clip of some airplane landing here. Let's take a look at that.
Yeah.
I assume they were happy to be on the ground.
That was my camera. That's landing on a dirt. That's actually the last part of Main Street in Port-au-Paix, Haiti. If the plane had continued through the runway, he would have been with the cars. But that's Port-au-Paix, Haiti, where we have an orphanage there, and another division of Mission Discovery called Hold the Children. And we were taking a small team there to deliver goods to the orphanage.
What do they have to do before they land that plane?
First of all, they have to fly over the runway to clear animals and people off the runway. It's a dirt strip, and there's mud and puddles on that, so they're checking for standing water. And then you saw at the beginning of that clip, there was a person actually running across the runway to get out of the way of the airplane. It's very exciting. I'm a pilot as well, and I would not be qualified for that runway. This is a group of missionaries who flew us in there with Mission Aviation Fellowship. And they're remarkable missionaries who run other missionaries around the country. But that is it's a beautiful in the sense of beautiful people. Very difficult area to live in.
Does God call all of us to be missionaries?
Great question. I would say yes, absolutely. I think, well, you got to define what a missionary is.
Okay.
You know, and I think if you look at the Great Commission, Matthew 28, Jesus kind of gives us all the command of go and make disciples of the world.
But that takes different forms for different people.
Sure. Yeah, but I would say, as far as daily life, are you a missionary? Are you spreading the mission of Christ? And I would say my wife is a first grade teacher. She's a missionary in her field. And you can be a missionary wherever you work, wherever you go to school. Yeah, I think it's everyone's job to share, as we say, share your stories. Share Christ with others in the way you live and in your story, or however you share verbally as well. I think so.
I was in Kroger at Henderson or Gallatin, and the manager, a very tall lady there, I saw her name badge, and I said, "You who know everything, can you take me to the peanut butter?" And she said, "Follow me." And we went over to the peanut butter, and I said, "Your husband must love you when it's time to shop and you're here with him." And she says, "Well, I'm not married, but I'm praying for a husband." And I thought, that's a cue. I'm praying for a husband. I said, "Give me your hand." I knew she would misunderstand this, but I said, "Give me your hand." And I said, "Lord Jesus, this is Margaret. She wants a husband. And I know you are powerful and you're always talking. And I ask that you give her her heart's desire to have a man who encourages her and loves her and will bring Jesus to her heart. In Jesus' name." I looked up and she was in tears. She was in tears. And it was just that. But she said the word. It was prayer. And I think it's being alert to what God is already doing in the world. And that was what our pastor had been teaching when my wife sent me to him. He had been teaching from a book that was written by Henry Blackaby in 1990 called Experiencing God. And he said in the book, the premise of the book was, discover what God is doing and join him. He's already at work, and he wants to use every one of us in his work. And so the name Mission Discovery actually came from that concept of discovering what God is doing and join him. We're always going to look for where he's already at work and take a team there. We're not going to just create the work. We're going to be invited to that work. It's there. It's happening. They want us to come. And so that's where the name Mission Discovery came from. It's to discover what God is doing and join him. I called the author of that book up just a few days after I started Mission Discovery. I said, "Dr. Blackaby, I'm Maury Buchanan. You don't know me, and I know you're busy." And I was just stumbling over my words. I said, "I created this agency named after your book." And he said, "That's just great, Maury." And he was very kind to me. And he said, "Keep me posted on how it's going." And so this is 30 years later. And people are still discovering what God's doing in the world and joining him. It's awesome. And I'm just so grateful for Nathan taking the helm of Mission Discovery.
I think I introduced you as Murray. It's Maury, though.
Maury, yeah. Well, the whole county down there mispronounces my name. So don't you worry. Yeah, don't you worry.
There was a video on the website, Hector in Guatemala. It was a 4-minute video. I think you used it for a banquet video for some fundraising. I chopped it down to 2 minutes. Let's take a look at that. You can comment on it afterwards.
Yo me llamo Héctor y tengo 13 años.
This is a story about Hector. Hector is a 12-year-old boy who lives with his family on the outskirts of Antigua, Guatemala. Every day he wakes up, eats breakfast, and then rides the bus for over an hour to get to school. Hector is doing something that none of his family has ever done. He's getting an education. That's where Nancy and Josue come in. Nancy and Josue are the directors of a local ministry called the Jeremiah Project. Their program provides that extra little help children need to stay in school and succeed. And that's where Madison and Mission Discovery come in. Madison and her church youth group have come down to Guatemala on a week-long mission trip. Her group will help with vital construction projects, lead a children's Bible school, and connect with the good work God is doing in this small corner of Central America. Over the course of 7 days, Madison will step outside of her normal life and see the world from a new perspective. As she crosses paths with Hector, Nancy, and Josue, she will learn how her experience in Guatemala is just one part of a larger story being told. It's the story of how God changes lives by calling His followers to serve one another. And that's how it's supposed to work. This is the story being told every year on mission discovery projects all across the globe. It is a story of love in action.
It's love in action, so you're helping not only the people in the country, but you're helping a mission effort in that country.
Yep.
Is that done quite a bit through Mission Discovery?
It's reciprocal. It's every trip is that way, where there's there is some there's a connection with a local ministry. There is a vacation Bible school. There is a physical work project, home construction, ramp building, orphanage construction, some physical project. In Tecate, Nathan, when he first went, helped to build a house there, a 12 by 16 foot house for a family. Even in that situation, we've worked with the local ministry of the city, DIF in Mexico, for example, to isolate families, to help with choosing families. So even that is based on invitation. So Nathan, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, so the project that was highlighting Guatemala, but yeah, just like Maury said, we're not. What we try to stress is that we're not bringing Jesus to Guatemala or Mexico or.
He's already there.
Yeah, he's already there. He's already at work, you know. And so what we're doing is we're partnering with the people, the organizations that are doing that work. In Guatemala, it's a school. This was a different ministry partner, but right now we work with a school in Guatemala that's doing incredible work, and we're just starting. You don't know this, I don't think. Yeah, maybe you do, but we're just starting providing mission trips for Guatemalans, which is a very different idea. I had an idea last year, called our ministry partner. I said, how possible would it be if we kind of raised money on our end and said, okay, a home is this amount. So we raise money for the house, and then you find church groups or your school or whoever that wants to do a mission trip. And so we're actually doing mission trips for Guatemala. And she said, you won't believe this. We've just been talking about having mission trips for people at our school. And so I said, okay, well, I guess that's a green light if there ever is one, you know. And so that's the other idea, is that we're not only partnering with them and doing menial tasks or things that don't mean anything. We're partnering with them and dreaming alongside them to enhance their ministry as well as, fund them and do the different things that God's calling us to do in the country, yeah.
Be you ready for some questions? Be ready? Be ready? While they're thinking. Favorite mission locations?
Well, Wednesday. For
Wednesday.
me, yeah, I love our work in Swaziland, or is now Eswatini. They changed the name. The country is a small country located in the south of Africa, right next door to South Africa. And teams, the ministry there is a ministry to orphans. There are over 400 orphans who make their home in Bulimbu. The community we work in, and our teams go there to help rebuild this deserted mining town, to care for orphans, and to help with homework and the like. It's a powerful 10-day trip. I love it.
Also, it happens in July, which July in Nashville, you know.
It's like August.
This is winter down there.
Thank
so he gets a two-week break generally in July from summer. Mine, I think if you ask anybody on our staff, most people would say Guatemala is their favorite location, just because we've got such a strong connection there with the people and built great relationships with them. So that's what I think. Yeah.
Anybody?
I was listening to a report just last night on Haiti. I wondered how safe you feel in Haiti. The report was saying just about every penny that the United States sends down there does not end up in the hands of the people. The government
Yeah.
takes it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you do? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Haiti, we stopped going to Haiti back in 2018 because a couple weeks after we left, there were riots, and actually one of the riots burned up the grocery store that we get all of our stuff at. So it was like, okay, well, and we started assessing the situation and decided that it was just not safe to go. But since then, we've continued to work with our local pastors. We can still wire funds down there. And so we were still able, through the pandemic even, to build. What we did was build churches. We planted churches down there. So far, I think we've got 14 or 15 churches that we planted in this one area. And so through the pandemic, we were able to continue funding that and planting those churches. And we know that our funds are being used correctly because we can account for them. We've got pictures, and our ministry partners show us what they're doing. Also, back in April, I was actually in this parking lot. We had a team right here, and we were helping with the Benevolent Center over here at that time. And I had to step away because I got a call from our Haitian pastor. He expressed how he wanted to start feeding the people that came to his house for church. So not only had he planted all these churches in this area, since he couldn't get to that area, he started inviting people to his house to have church. He had 350 people showing up every week, with 100 on the outskirts that weren't really church people. But so he said, I said, what do you need? He said, well, we're already giving them hot food on Sundays when they come through the gifts that we're already giving. But we need an extra sum amount for sending them home with bags of food so they can have food throughout the week. And so that day I made a call. I got over half the money that day. And then I'm still working to get the rest of it. But we have been since then giving them food. And to this day, I thank goodness, it's over 32,000 meals that we've provided since that phone call in this parking lot. Yeah.
I went on a mission trip to Jamaica, and we worked in the village. We worked in one orphanage and then worked with the other people there. I felt like you've got to walk in their shoes. When you walk in their shoes, you know more about what they're going through and their feelings. And I became so humble after I left there. It was the best experience I have ever had in my life. What I learned from those people, I feel like I learned more than what they learned from me. Mm-hmm. But it was a wonderful experience.
It's awesome.
And the other thing, we have a Jeremiah house in Nashville. I didn't know if y'all know about that or not, but we have one here in Nashville.
Oh, great.
It's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, that was a Wednesday that she knew that it was a
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Are you able to get plumbing and electricity in some of these houses?
You know, when I was building houses in Mexico, no, that wasn't available, not because we couldn't have wired it, you know. There's very little codes there where we worked, but it was just cost prohibitive for the people. Nathan, are you wiring any houses in Tecate or?
No. Sometimes we provide stoves and things like that. So one thing I would add is that what we offer for families is a leg up. Is giving them a better situation than what they are currently in, and if they will wire and they will get plumbing and they will make it work, but we want them to have some part in the building and the participation of that home. It's not buy-in maybe, but it's like offering them a bit of dignity. What means more, hiring somebody to come fix your house or doing it yourself? So we want to have them a little bit of that, or give them a little bit of that experience as well. So, is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
How large is your staff, and do you do fundraisers to help along with your mission trips?
Not large enough, and yes, we definitely do fundraisers. Staff, we're right around 10 or 11 people right now. 10. I'm getting the sign. April is on our staff. She's here tonight. And so, yeah, 10 people. And we just finished a fundraiser back in early September. We did our annual banquet. So, yeah.
Can you tell us the countries that you have been to or go to regularly?
Yes. Okay.
I'm retired.
Yeah, he's out of the game.
It was 8 when I was the president, and Nathan, it's more than that.
I
now.
don't know.
I think it's 13.
Could be.
13
yeah.
nations.
So countries, the United States, we go to, we have a lot of teams come to Nashville to serve. Nashville's a hot spot right now. Bluefield, West Virginia, soon to be Asheville area for obvious reasons. And Rapid City, South Dakota, Daytona Beach, Boston, a bunch of cities in the States. And then as far as outside of the States, we've got Jamaica, Guatemala, Mexico, Costa Rica. We've got the Bahamas.
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, which is a territory of the United States, I think. And then, yeah.
From Alabama.
How long have you been retired, man?
Sorry, yeah.
Eswatini, Swaziland, Jamaica, I think, yeah. I'm missing some. Ireland, Northern Ireland, yep. Yeah. We've been around.
Mark. Tell me about Mark. Got a picture of Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Goodness.
wow. Mark was a volunteer with his youth group from Belmead United Methodist Church right here in Nashville. And Mark loved our trips and continued to come on them even when his youth group didn't come. He figured out a way to join us. He's been to Guatemala, South Africa. He's been to Cadi, and Mark eventually, his passion led him to leadership on our board of directors. Mark would say that mission discovery trips changed part of the DNA of Belmead United Methodist Church, in that it became this servant-hearted church after their experiences on adult trips and youth trips. Mark passed away last year. And we were so sorry to lose him, but so grateful for his service to Mission Discovery as a board member, and for our fundraising golf tournament. He has a name on a plaque for many years for raising the most money for those, because he saw firsthand, like you did, the power of the work that God did in his students, this group that he and his youth pastor brought, and in him, and in the community as well. It's a powerful story.
So it's a wide range of people in age who go on these trips.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And our oldest participant was in her mid-90s to Swaziland. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a 90-year-old on a trip to Bluefield this year. Yeah. And we had Malachi, so it was a wide spread.
Yeah, it's your baby. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Mark, my first interaction with Mark, I think, maybe my first, but remember we walked through Spain with Mark.
Oh, that's right.
We did the Camino de Santiago, the last 100 miles through snow, and he sold it to Mark. He said, really, they said this is just going to be an easy trek, it's and you can catch a cab at any time. No, we were in the middle of nowhere, Spain, and Mark and I are just holding up the back of the line. And he's just a great friend. And he was on the board of directors when they decided to put me in the role of president. And he's the board member that would reach out the most. And we go to lunch about once a month, and just checking on me. He just knew how to love well in really small ways, really small, meaningful ways. Yeah. You just never know what inviting somebody to lunch will mean. So.
What else? Any final words you want to share?
Well, just for the audience, if you're considering a short-term mission trip, you've never been on one.
We're talking a week or 2 weeks, right?
Short-term? Yeah, short-term, 7 to 10 days.
Okay.
And you're considering, I'm too old, I'm too young. I would give Nathan a call at Mission Discovery. Our phone number is online at missiondiscovery.org. And my promise is this, that if you can take a disc jockey and and have him take a step of faith to go on a mission trip and then think that he could possibly organize it for others, then he can use you. I watched a middle school young lady walk into a community where houses had been burned down in Mexico. And the mayor of the city of Reynosa had asked us to go into this community and help these families rebuild their homes that had burned down. And this middle school young lady came down into this gully where these burned houses were, and the community gathered around because primarily the mayor was there. It was a big deal. And so instead of the mayor speaking, this junior high girl stepped forward and she said, with the help of a translator, "We're here because of Jesus, and Jesus has not forgotten you, and we want to build your homes back. And the mayor is here too, and she wants to help as well." And it was just beautiful, and these Mexican men and women were in tears that this child had spoken the words, "I have not forgotten you," as if God said them out loud to them. You are not forgotten. And as far as you and your audience, the same words are for you. God has not forgotten you. He's always talking to you, and he's willing to talk through a donkey. He's willing to talk through an ant. He says in the Old Testament, consider the ants and how they toil. And he's always talking. When you hear his voice, act. Pray for the manager at Kroger. Grab her hand and ask that a husband come along her way, and watch what happens. Missions happen all around us, and he's always inviting you and I to that great adventure for one reason, to say, that was not me, but that was you, God. You worked.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank
you
you.
have something else to say?
Yeah, I was going to a quick piggyback off of this idea that God has not forgotten you. I think that is what we do really well. And I think this is just going to speak to the time that we're in now. When you're looking at news footage of the eastern Tennessee, western Carolinas, and you're seeing complete towns devastated or wiped away completely by the floods that happened there. I think every one of us has experienced the anguish in our hearts looking at those videos, and it's just devastating. And really, right now, you've got a lot of first responders that are going and helping rescuing people, and then you're going to have a bunch of people go in, and that are going to set up shelters and give them food and medical treatment. But soon, news is going to forget all about this. It's going to be out of the news cycle, and they're going to move on to something else. And these people in these little hollers across the mountains are going to say, why isn't anyone paying attention to us? And that's where Mission Discovery and agencies or churches like us come in, because we want to make sure these people don't feel forgotten. We want to make sure that they know that God sees them in their darkest hour. So,
this came from the Mission Discovery website. Let me paraphrase this. The word missionary isn't specifically mentioned in the Bible, but the stories of individuals like Moses, Paul, Esther, and Philip illustrate the essence of mission work. They were committed to spreading God's love and advancing his kingdom on earth. Their examples inspire us to step out in faith, embrace diversity, advocate for justice, and cultivate meaningful relationships. May we, like these biblical heroes, seek to advance his kingdom and share his love with the world.
Amen.
Sounds good. Take time this week to share your story of amazing grace. Thank you for joining us online, and thank you for being a part of our live audience. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.